All right, so what I wanted you to look at in this anatomy model, I'm going to show you a few different things, but the muscle that I was kind of curious if it was pretty tight on you is going to be a little bit of glute med, a little bit of glute max, okay? So if you can visualize, it's actually going to be more so, well, we'll get this guy first. So when you are looking at what glute max does, it rotates your leg out, okay? Yours is kind of shortened in the sense of its happy place is to be rotated out. Like it doesn't really love to be rotated in any way. So if you're thinking, looking at this from kind of a running perspective, if you're starting your running cycle rotated out, more kind of in that position. Now obviously yours is not quite that exaggerated, but in the running analysis videos, if I were to add on that other leg here, your heel is coming over and it's crossing midline. So midline would be kind of right in here. Your hip is already rotated a little bit. So if I show you from straight on, you can tell it's rotated because foot is here, and then this musculature would be a little bit shortened or tightened, or just basically wanting to stay in a shortened position, rotating your leg out. Now, if we go back to everything else, if you can picture that kind of external rotation, right? So if you were rotated out that way, so let's say your foot is rotated more this direction, toes are pointed here, kneecap is angled a little bit more out. When you go to pull forward, as opposed to pulling forward with your hip flexors in here and your leg just pulling in a straight line up, you end up pulling with your adductors a little bit more actually. So like these guys that run right here from groin line down the middle of your leg, they attach a little bit below the knee. You also have, like if I take off a layer of your muscle here, like we're getting down, this is not what would pull it forward quite as much, so that's like the deepest layer. So if we just start adding them on here, your gracilis is the skinny, like kind of ropey one that you feel when you are rubbing your inner thigh. And then if we look on the back side, your hamstrings that come up and attach right where your sit bone is, so like when you feel discomfort up into your actual buttock area, this one, your membranosus, attaches the medial side of your knee, so this inner part. So if you can picture, again, your leg being more rotated out this way, your toes pointing out more here, you're going to end up pulling that leg forward a little bit with this guy, a little bit with this guy, right? So you were used to using those muscles in ballet, but when you do it over and over and over, eventually something's got to give, because what typically is supposed to happen is, let me clear this out, and let's actually flip it over and let's look at the whole bottom of the foot here. So what is supposed to happen is your foot is supposed to turn into this rigid, rigid kind of thing to push off of, basically. So if we add this all on, this is your plantar fascia here, okay? So whenever you hear people talk about plantar fasciitis, it is right usually where it attaches to the bone. Now, when you push off in a running form and you push off through your big toe, what happens is sorry, let me zoom out a little bit. This is looking all kinds of crazy. So your posterior tibialis, if you've heard of people getting shin splints, let's take off this muscle casing. Okay. So this guy, posterior tibialis, this is under your calf muscle. So calf muscle that you're used to thinking about, okay? Soleus, that a lot of people forget about, that is deep to your calf muscle. When you take that off, your posterior tib, that tendon comes down and it is your arch support, basically. So when you're rotating out, and instead of activating your plantar fascia and turning it into this kind of rigid structure to push off of and going through your big toe. When you're rotated out, your arches are not low, so they don't collapse per se, but you're putting all this tension through these musculatures that come up. And basically it's changing the entire dynamic and structural support of your leg. It's supposed to be very sturdy down here. You push off through the big toe. Instead, when you're rotated out, you're putting all the pressure through here. It can end up pulling on your posterior tib. When we add everything else on, this is actually what goes to your big toe, your flexor digitorum. Oh, well, that goes to all of your toes. Your flexor hallucis longus goes to your big toe, but it comes same place, right? So basically, instead of using all those structurals, you are rotated. You're going to be pulling through your semitendinosus, through your semimembranosus. See how all of them attach here in the middle? So if you're rotated out, that line of pull is coming right through here. And I think that's most of your issue. And these end up coming up and they attach to the buttock area. The other thing I think is happening with you is that you are not fully using your glutes to push forward into extension. So all these little bitties, so instead of these big muscles getting all the work, you have these smaller muscles that when they stay shortened, these guys rotate your hip in and out. They start to get irritated, and when you start looking at big nerves that run in here, your sciatic nerve sits directly on top of some of these little guys and underneath your piriformis. And then if you look where it goes right here through the back of the leg. So it's just something to take into account that all of it works together. I don't think you have one exact thing going on aside from I think it's stemming from your hip. And I think if we can start to really change the mechanics, I think your pain will change. I don't think it's weakness per se. I think it's functional weakness. And there's just a better picture of your big sciatic nerve. So when you get that deep achy in your butt cheek feeling, or right here at your sit bone, those can get a little irritated. And then there's other branches of nerves that are also in this area, and they stem off of up here and then they come down. But that's just a general overview. Hopefully that's not too overwhelming. I just want to see what all is going on in there.